This is little Christopher Delnecki. He didn't quite make it to 3 years old, a month shy. He was born in spring in June and died in spring in May. There are some little bears here with this beautiful statue. The boy is holding a bird, and it says here, there was a little bird. I wasn't able to find out what happened to little Christopher, but we are here today to walk to the grave of a man named Henry Joseph Darger. Now, this is going to be a little controversial, and I'm definitely not going to get in the middle of this. But Henry Darger, if you go to my very first video on YouTube, the very first one I made was at Bohemian National Cemetery, and it centered around, among other things, a little girl that was kidnapped and murdered. Her name was Eliska Paroubek. She went by the name Elsie. And where this Darger name came to me was in that story, he was one of the suspects later after his death, piecing things together. And that's more of a, nothing official, more of a popular opinion thing. I don't even know if it was popular, but anyway, if we kind of rewind big picture, let's talk about Henry. He was born in Chicago. His father was Henry Sr. He was, his father was crippled and impoverished, and they lived in, I don't want to say the slums, but they lived in a really a bad part of town. So he was exposed to a lot of, probably prostitution he observed, and abuse. He was not abused by his father. He was a gentle man. But I think as I read between the lines of history, it seems he was abused by the system, because when his father died, he was still a little boy. They put him, they institutionalized him. And they put him, I think it was in 1900, in a place called the Illinois Asylum for Feeble-Minded Children. Feeble-minded children, isn't that nice? So, today it's known as the Lincoln Development Center in Chicago. And their opinion of Henry is he was a problem child, and he didn't like adults. He was a smart aleck, according to some of the history, and they made a diagnosis on Henry and said that he was self-abusive. Now, that was a euphemism in the day as a gentle way of saying he masturbated a lot. And of course, in those days, that was viewed as kind of a sacrilegious thing. Could be viewed as homosexuality, evil, all that kind of stuff. So Henry, went through, he kind of became this introverted, antisocial kid into an adult. And if you look at the years when he was born, he was born in 1892, and Eliska was killed Oh, I have to go back and look. I think it was 1911, 1905. I think it was 1911. So just generally speaking, he was in his late teens. We can all agree on that. And getting back to his story, I'm just kind of tying it back to the possibility, at that age, what he might have done. He was working as he grew older, as a custodian for a Catholic hospital. I don't know the name of it. Doesn't matter. And by night, unbeknownst to anyone, he was doing these interesting, probably that's the nice way of putting it, paintings and working on this manifesto of a story about little girls. He made murals and paintings, mostly out of watercolor and pencil. And they were, some people will say they were perverted. They were creepy. Other people will say they were interesting artwork. What happened was nobody knew about it until he died in 77, and then his landlords, two guys, went in his little apartment, his little hovel, which was on campus, so it was like a boarding house, and they found this treasure trove of all this stuff. And they kind of publicized it out there in the artists community. Chicago has a very talented and prolific artistic and artist community. And the artistic community took it and ran and basically, make a long story short, pay homage to Henry Darger. Homage that it's called outsider art. In other words, he was an outsider. He did it on his own. He wasn't in the club. He's become quite famous now, and the works that he did included, probably the center point was this story about what's called the Vivian Girls. And people believe that was inspired by the murder of Eliska Paroubek. In fact, there was it is testified that there was or he would say over and over, there was this picture of Eliska after the murder that he was obsessed with from the newspaper, and he lost it. And he couldn't find it. And he obsessed this many, many years. Now, if we kind of stop for a moment and think about killers. I'm not saying he's a killer, or was the killer, but, they like those kind of keepsakes. He is in this section right here, and it took me a long time to find his grave. And it's the little people, or the people, I can't read it from here. You can read it. It was kind of the pauper section of the cemetery here, All Saints on the east side. And I think it was right in here. Yeah, there it is. Henry, this is it. The cemetery had incorrect coordinates, so I was on a goose chase for a long time before I got this corrected. What's this? Oh, interesting. That's a crucifix someone left on a string to wear around your neck. So, you know, it's controversial. This work that he did on what's called the Vivian Girls, and I think it was called Into the Realm of the Unreal. And this whole manifesto of Henry's included what, you know, again, I'm not going to get in the middle of this, but what many would say are perverted type of pictures. There's seven. The overall story was interesting. 7 girls going against the monsters of the world, which included adults, and they were the slaves. They were slaves to the adults, and they would go at war. But I wonder, as we get into modern academia, people want to make an argument, and maybe it's a good argument, that these perverse paintings, which included, and this is just one example, the girls would have horns, and they would also have male, they would be naked with male organs, you know what I mean? And a Professor Lisa Runquist, for example, is the world authority on Henry Darger, I guess, and she's a PhD, and she's the curator down in North Carolina University at Asheville. She got her PhD from North Carolina, and she looks like a very sharp woman, but I'll say she made a quote that was in an article that said that those male appendages maybe were, and again, she didn't say this was her, you know, was hard fact, but she made an argument that possibly those were, Henry put those on there because they needed, this was kind of defense armament, kind of like a peacock showing their feathers, or an animal making itself bigger, right, against the enemy. But, you know, someone could also make an argument that was just plain a pervert at work at night doing drawings. What he was fantasizing about, who knows? I'm not going to get in the middle, but that's kind of the story. The big reason I'm here, I thought it was very interesting, is the tie-in to Eliska Paroubek, and was Henry the killer? Can't say. It says here that Henry was the protector of children. So you make the decision, your opinion. Was he the protector or the villain of children? I'm not going to get involved in that argument. But that's a little history for today, and it ties into my first video. I thought it was interesting. So have a great day, gang.